JJK 259 is finally here and roller coaster. Absolute roller coaster. Strap the hell in. Spoilers beware. Alright, so the chapter begins with a flashback between Yuji, Noritoshi Kamo, and Choso. Yuji is asking Choso to teach him how to use convergence with blood manipulation, but Choso is a terrible teacher. So Noritoshi Kamo is explaining how it works. Choso then gets a little in his feels and pouty because Kamo is a better teacher than him, and so he says, "Hey Yuji, let me teach you how to do the supernova attack." But Kamo chimes in again and is like, no, he doesn't need to learn that right now. He needs to learn how to stop bleeding and suture. We then see the editor's note for the beginning of this chapter, and it is, "Teach me, older brother." It's then revealed in this flashback that the second person Yuji swapped with after Kusakabe was Yuta Okotsu. We then cut back to the present with a beautiful double-page spread of Sukuna casting the fire arrow. The narrator then tells us that only by going through the cooking process of using both cleave and dismantle will the door to the fire arrow open. Also, it lacks relative speed and has a narrowed effect range. To resolve these issues, Sukuna has imposed yet another binding vow on himself. The fire arrow is then released, and Uraume says, "This is our win," and there is a massive explosion, as the narrator explains that the heat from this thing causes decompression and the elimination of all living beings within the domain. This is Sukuna's ultimate technique and the same one that destroyed Maharaga in one strike. The narrator goes on to say that in Sukuna's fight with Gojo, because he had to continuously change the specifications of his domain, he couldn't use the fire arrow. He had to keep it sealed. We then cut to Yuji, who is standing face to face with Choso. He has not taken any damage from this fire arrow because Choso has protected him. He's created this blood barrier to completely surround his brother, but at the cost of his own life. And as he's fading away, the last thing he says to Yuji is that he's sorry. He's sorry for being a bad teacher during their training. I'm not okay, because we then get a page where Yuji and Choso are at their little picnic table, the same one we saw when Choso first had his premonitions about Yuji, except they're alone. All of the other curse wound death paintings are gone, and Choso compliments Yuji for learning reverse curse technique faster than he did. And Yuji says, "It's only because Sukuna was in my body." And Choso says, "No, it's okay. Little brothers are meant to surpass their older brothers." Gege, I swear to Yuji then scolds Choso. He won't accept it. He says, "You can't just disappear." And Choso says, "Right, I need to apologize to Yuki as well." "Yuji, I'm sorry I'm having to leave you alone again." And Yuji says, "You were always by my side when times were toughest. That's more than enough." And I guess Gege is trying to go just berserk on the emotional damage, because then we get this kind of pseudo flashback of Choso remembering a time with his brothers in the test tubes where we have Eso say, "Big bro, are you there?" And Choso in his test tube is like, "I'm right here." Then Ketchizu says, "I'm so cold." And Choso's like, "It's okay. Let's just talk. If we talk, we'll forget about the cold." And he just looks back on those 150 years that they spent together, and then that they only had really a few days with Yuji. We then cut back to reality, to the battlefield, where Choso is giving his final words as he fades away. And he says, "Thank you, Yuji, for becoming my brother." And Yuji just says, "Thank you, big brother." Choso then literally disintegrates in front of him, and Yuji gets to his feet, just surrounded by flame and ash, just this desolate battlefield, and all he can see is the silhouette of Sukuna approaching him. And Yuji just helplessly says, "Guys, anyone?" The narrator then says that Yuji had convinced himself he was a cog, that no matter what happened, he would fulfill his role. But as the scorched earth's heat began to come his way, it shook the foundation of his resolve to repay his brother who had just sacrificed his life to protect him. And next we get a full page panel of Sukuna just menacingly walking down Yuji, except he's not the only one to have arrived. Because in Yuji's time of need, Todo, his brother, will always be there. And I am not kidding. Todo's big dumbass literally strolled right out into that battlefield, complete with a huge bandage around his injured hand, except we immediately cut to a flashback of him and Mei talking and planning on what to do if Sukuna were to cast past his domain expansion. So they come up with this idea where with Mei's crows and Todo's boogie woogie, they could perhaps swap people that are trapped inside the domain with crows that are outside the domain. But Sukuna's domain is really bad news. So even if this works, Todo can't guarantee that it will actually save anybody's lives, but it's worth a shot. Mei says Todo will have to be outside of Sukuna's domain for this to work, and so he needs to expand the range of his boogie woogie by a lot. And then she asks him, can you even really still do boogie woogie? And Todo says he's not sure, but he feels the heartbeat of boogie woogie still within inside of him. Todo then says they can't tell Yuji about this because he and Sukuna used to share a body and their connection is so strong. So even though it was in the past and he's not sharing a body anymore, he doesn't want to take any chances of this plan getting spilled to Sukuna. The narrator then says that even Todo was uncertain if this had worked even after he did it. Like he didn't know if the people he clapped out were safe, and that he couldn't even manage to try with Choso and Yuji because they were in the dead center of the domain. They were too far away. Back to the present in the battlefield, Todo obviously doesn't have enough time to explain all of this to Yuji, so he just yells, "I'm sorry, brother, but everybody else is probably okay." Yuji then steals his resolve after listening to the words of his brother and decides that he is going to trust Todo and just believe that everyone else is okay, and he locks the fuck in. Then for the final page of the chapter, Yuji and Todo just start rushing Sukuna, with Todo whipping off his bandages as he does so. The narrator then reveals that Sukuna is currently at a state where it's difficult to use his curse technique because he has just used his domain expansion, and that's where the chapter ends. And the editor's note for this chapter says, "The path to victory linked by the brothers." Come on, man, that's so good. Such a hype ending, and there is no break next week. I was worried about this because last week it was break, but that was because of Golden Week and not because of Gege. So I was worried Gege might take a break this week, but he's not. We have 260 next week. But oh man, what a chapter. Like, you probably can't tell, but I am perspiring. This chapter put me through it, like the roller coaster of emotions. Like, this devastated me. And then the only reason I'm like even keel and kind of hype right now is because Todo is one of my absolute favorite characters, and I cannot believe we actually did get to see him come back, and they are going to do the purest, primest, most delicious Jump Kaisen. I cannot wait. But this was devastating. This was absolutely devastating. Gege ripped our hearts out with like 5 different consecutive flashbacks, each going a layer deeper into the emotional pain. Like the big brother to top all big brothers, right? And this is such an interesting dynamic. You know I'm going to wax poetic about this in probably several videos over the next week or so. But, you know, Yuji, the man whose brothers would literally die for him, versus Sukuna, the man who literally killed his brother. Like, it's so good, right? And I hate that he had to go, but it was such a beautiful way to do it. And where one brother falls, another takes his place. I cannot believe Todo is back. So many things to discuss, so many things to think about. We'll obviously definitely be talking about Todo. There's a lot there, but also there was some really interesting stuff with Sukuna this chapter. We found out a little bit more about the fire arrow, and that cleave and dismantle are necessary precursors to using it, which some of you guys had even been speculating with me recently in the community. So I'm interested to find out more in exactly how those things are connected, because we've seen him use it like during or directly after a domain expansion twice, but then against Jogo, he hadn't used the domain expansion yet, but he had clearly been cleaving and dismantling a whole bunch. And I just love the fact that Gege gave us that explicit data point about why he didn't use it in the Gojo fight, because I just didn't want to hear people saying he was holding that back. Obviously a lot to think about and marinate on, so you guys let me know your thoughts, theories, and comments down below, and be sure to pay your respects to the best big bro there is, and thank you so much for watching.